Okay, we are here to present the paper Coaching Style of Coaches and Levels of Motivation of Para-Athletes in Selected Institutions for Persons with Disability, an Enhancement Program. Okay, on behalf of Charmaine D. Agravante, I am Juno Bautista, the presenter. Now, for background to the study and introduction, Coach Anderson, MB 2015, coach and leaders may not be entirely synonymous, but their roles are related. Both manage and improve their teams and act as example for others to follow. Their position and influence are vital to building teams relationship, reaching goals, and providing a healthy environment for constructive growth. Coaches and leaders with the field of athletics. Athletes motivation according to Magyu and Valoran 2003. In sports, athletes motivation can be the key to success of the various outside influences that have an effect on athletes throughout the sports experience. The coach-athletes relationship one of the most important influence on athletes' motivation and performance. Furthermore, in the Philippines, there is a Philippine Paralympic Committee, PPC, formerly known as the Philippine Sport Association for Disabled National Paralympic Committee of the Philippines, which is the National Sport Association for Physically Impaired Athletes, tasked to spearhead developing sport competency for Filipino persons with disability. It is the Philippine National Paralympic Committee, which is duly recognized by International Paralympic Committee. Now, for coach-athletes relationship, Magyar and Valera 2003, athletes' motivation affects on performance. The coach-athletes relation is not simply one of the most important influences on athletes' motivation, it also one of the most important influences of athletes' performance as well. Because of this, coach plays such a vital role in the sports team due to the fact that they are responsible for creating and maintaining ideal conditions of players to fulfill their fullest potential. If the coach does not able to develop coaching style that is capable of gaining the attention, respect, and will to improve from his or her athletes, it is likely that he or she will not be able to motivate them in any form, which leads to lack of success. Thus, the researchers show that there are growing needs to study the relationship between the coaching style of coaches who cater persons with disabilities, specifically the para-athletes and their corresponding motivation and the use of data as reference for enhancement program for improvement of the PWDs. Now, for methods and materials, this study is somehow anchored by descriptive correlation method. According to Berlin Abbott 2005, okay, descriptive design was used to determine if two or more variables are associated with each other. Descriptive research design described the data and examined the relationship between the variables. Descriptive correlation design method was used in this study to determine the coaching style of the coaches and the levels of motivation of para-athletes and the relationship between the two. Participants of the study. The participants were coaches and para-athletes of the Philippine uh, Paralympic Committee of the Sports Commission in Pasig City. Request letter to the committee were given. Purposive sampling was employed according to Chongko MDC 2015. Purposive sampling is non-probability sampling technique that focus on particular characteristics of the population. A total of 115 participants were gathered, 31 for coaches and 84 for Paralympics. The subject, coaches who cater Paralympics sa following criteria: has 2 or more years of experience in coaching Paralympics, with the age range of 23 to 60 years old, currently employed in selected institutions. For para-athletes, with the following criteria: persons with disability, which is physically disabled and includes a para-orthopedic, impairment, limb deficiency, and talipis, with the age range of maturity that begins at 18 years old and above, able to participate in any event of Paralympics at least once, currently enrolled in selected institutions. To obtain the data, coaching style inventory created by Creative Commons Attributes version 2.1 January 2003 and Sport Motivation Scale 2 was implemented to obtain different scores of the coaching styles such as expert, guide, developer, and catalyst, and motivation such as intrinsic, integrated, identified, introjected, external, and unmotivated. The data gathered were conducted with the supervision of licensed psychometrician. The data gathered were analyzed using statistical treatments such as general weighted mean and Pearson R. For ethical consideration, the precedence of this study is not to cause any harm and give a discordant emotion on the part of the respondents during the data gathering. The researcher made sure that the safety of the respondents' informed consent form were given before each survey. This form contains ethical consideration and the purpose of the study. Another priority is building rapport between the researcher and the respondents for them to have spontaneous survey. The purpose of the study will be explained to respondents and they are given 3 will to withdraw anytime during the course of the research process if they feel the research cause some harm to them. The informed consent serve as agreement between the researcher and the respondent. These forms serve as a proof that they agreed on the regulation that they are willing to share their experiences. For discussion, table number 1 shows the distribution of responses and weighted mean score per coach's style. Expert style has the mean score of 25 with equivalent of high style preferences. Likewise, the developer style with the mean score of 40 with equivalent of high style preferences. The guide style with the mean score of 37 with equivalent of mid-range style preference. And lastly, catalyst style has the mean score of 18 with equivalent of low style preferences. For table number 2 shows the distribution of respondents and weighted mean score per motivation. Instinctive motivation has the mean score of 63 followed by integrated motivation with a mean score of 38. Next, identified motivation has the mean score of 21 tied with external motivation and unmotivated motivation. Uh, um, Introductive motivation has the mean score of 9. It shows that intrinsic motivation appeared as the leading in motivation as affirmed by the participant. Likewise, on the intrinsic motivation is the least motivation. Now, for table number 3, the relationship between the coaching style and the levels of motivation of the participant. Regarding the expert coaching style, the p-value was 0.0017 for intrinsic motivation, 0.036 for integrated motivation, and 0.044 for identify at a level of zero point zero 0.05 levels of significance, showing there were significant relationship between the said variables. However, the p-value was 0.056 for integrated motivation, 0.065 for external motivation, 0.084 for unmotivated motivation, at zero point zero 0.05 levels of significance, showing there were no significant relationship between these variables. For guide coaching style, the p-value was 0.0029 for intrinsic motivation, 0.017 for integrated motivation, and 0.048 for identify at zero point zero 0.05 levels of significance, showing there were significant relationship between the said variables. However, the p-value was 0.88 for intrinsic motivation, 0.331 external motivation, and 0.133 for unmotivated motivation at zero point zero 0.05 levels of significance, showing there were no significant relationship between these variables. In developer coaching styles, the p-value was 0.001 for intrinsic motivation, 0.029 for integrated motivation, 0.030 for identify, and at zero point zero 0.05 levels of significance, showing there were significant relationship between the said variables. However, the p-value was 0.941 for integrated motivation, 0.557 external motivation, 1 and 0.154 for unmotivated motivation at zero point zero 0.05 level significance, showing there were no significant relationship between these variables. In terms of catalyst coaching style, the p-value was 0.288 for intrinsic motivation, 0.33 for integrated motivation, and 0.251 for identify, 0.860 for interjective motivation, and 0.242 external motivation, and 0.159 for unmotivated motivation at zero point zero 0.05 levels of significance, showing there were no significant relationship between these variables. For conclusion, most participant coaches prefer expert and developer coaching style most of the time and use guide coaching style on average account. In contrast, the catalyst coaching style is not used often. Most participant parameters were intrinsic motivation followed by integrated motivation and identified motivation. Furthermore, external and unmotivated motivation were relatively the same with the participant. Introjective motivation were least used by the participant. There were relationships between expert coaching style and the following motivation: intrinsic motivation, integrated motivation, identified. However, there were no relationships between expert coaching style and the following motivation: introjected motivation, external motivation, and unmotivated motivation. There were relationships between guide coaching style and the following motivation: intrinsic motivation, integrated motivation, and identified. However, there were no relationship between guide coaching style and the following motivation: integrated motivation, external motivation, and unmotivated motivation. There were relationships between developer coaching style and the following motivation: intrinsic motivation, integrated motivation, and identified. However, there were no relationship between developer coaching style, and following motivation, introjected motivation, external motivation, and unmotivated motivation. There were no relationship between catalyst coaching style and the following motivation. For intrinsic motivation, integrated motivation, identified motivation, introjected motivation, external motivation, and unmotivated motivation. For recommendation, the researcher recommend participants practice to understand more about the motivation them. Furthermore, continue the coaching's use and if the possible be exploring the catalyst coaching style. The researcher recommend the institution to continue the coaching style use. The national and local government should improve more the already existing program for a person with it by having more trained coaches. For the researcher of this study, recommend the for future researcher to explore other factors such as gender difference, other disability, other research design instrument, or they could conduct a follow-up study to test the reliability and validity of the researcher. For acknowledgement, the searcher recently was to give thanks to the School of Arts and Science, especially in Dean Jean Edwin Railway support to conduct this study. The researcher would like to extend their gratitude to the Office of Philippine Paralympic Committee, PPC, for granting the request to conduct the said study. Likewise, the researcher want to extend their thanks to coaches and para team who supported our study. That's it to Dr. Georgina Portmario, Vice President of Academic Affairs, and Dr. Jose P. Paulo Campos, EACC President, for never-ending support for the facilities of researcher. Here are the references for the researcher. Thank you and God bless.